Welcome to our first Momentum Academy talk. We've had more than 400 people register, and we hope to see more people come in as we go along. And we're just really excited to share with you some interesting stuff we have with you guys. Today, we are going to take a little bit of a sneak peek behind Shopee's doors, especially since C just announced their annual results earlier this week. So it's kind of timely. A little bit about us. Most of you already know us. We're Momentum Works, and we are a venture outfit focused on knowledge, community, and experience. And today, I want to introduce you to Momentum Academy, which is hosting this talk today. And at Momentum Academy, we want to connect the insights we have with what's going on and make it relatable so it's something you can bring back to your workplace. With that, this is a team who are here today, and of course, some flattering photos of ourselves. You'll be hearing from Nanette, Yolin, Jiangan, and I as we will be sharing in this talk. You would have also heard from Aish, and she's the one who has been sending you reminders and also answering some of your questions before the event. And Edwin here was instrumental in getting this deck up. Fun fact, he's a Swede, and we're supposed to be fixing some IKEA furniture next week, hopefully. And I'm sure you have been familiar with our reports. Today, we are going to use some of the information from our insights and what's going on in the market today, and also your burning questions to hopefully share some kick-ass stuff during the presentation today. All right. So we've received some great questions from you guys. Aish has also probably sent you some answers, but we thought we could also share this with the wider audience. And we've weaved this into the next 1 hour. And bear in mind, it's not going to be a lecture, but I hope this would be a kind of two-way conversation. So feel free to drop some comments or questions in the chat as we go along. We also have a Q&A session. So if you have any burning questions, we can answer it there. All right, let's go. A quick look at what we'll be diving into today. We'll be taking a look at some of the history of Shopee, its leadership and strategies that brought them to where they are today. Understanding people and culture. I think that's always quite a contended topic in the tech industry. And of course, the Q&A session that I mentioned earlier. So as we start, to really understand, we think, how Shopee works and what they will do next, we really need to understand where they came from. And with that, my colleague Nanette will share with you on how Shopee got started and where it's heading. Nanette.
Sure. So thank you, Brendan. As many of you might know, Carousel, that recently become a unicorn, actually come much earlier compared to Shopee. They have a very good C2C mobile experience, especially in secondhand. When Shopee first came about, people said, "Oh, you look like Carousel." And the truth is, yes, they copied a lot of things from Carousel. Even journalists back then were asking, how would Shopee avoid the challenges that Carousel was facing? But obviously, from the beginning, they had a very different vision. Okay, can you go next, Brendan? Okay, now, so let me read you what Chris Feng told the journalists back in 2015. Carousel was very lucky in the sense that they started early in Singapore market. It's good that they educate the market, but ultimately it's like a welcome present. I don't see them as a competitor for long term. They will be niche players, second-hand market for a very long time, and it's okay to be like that. In some sense, we do look very somehow similar, but I don't think we'll evolve very differently as the time goes. And now, as you can see in 2022, the two companies are very different, but back then in 2015, could you tell? Here we go next. Okay, so one thing that everyone notices about Shopee is their ad campaigns and brand ambassadors, of course. And this is one of the many parts of marketing that they have been doing. But it has generated a lot of buzz recently. And we have heard a lot of people from marketing professionals, agency complain that these ads are disgrace to the marketing professions and no creativity at all. But if you see their profile here, are they really cheap? So let's pause here and think about what does an average consumer in Indonesia, where I am from, feel when I see Ronaldo dancing to the silly baby shark dance. Well, they will feel happy. So the same pattern goes for Phua Chu Kang for the Singapore and Malaysian audience. And The latest one, Jackie Chan, fun fact, companies in China which use him as brand ambassadors almost always saw their stock price drop afterwards. Is this the same here? Over to you, Janggan.
Hi. I think over the past year and a half, there has been lots of attention on Shopee's digital financial services ambitions. A key part of that is what we call C-Bank. So they have acquired a bank in Indonesia. They have obtained a banking license in Singapore. I think recently they also announced that they had acquired a banking license in the Philippines as well. So the question here is that why do they bother with the bank? Do they want to compete against traditional established banks, or there's something else out there? Next, please. Going a little bit back in history. So when a company is going well, it's very easy to say that, okay, they had the foresight. They made the right decisions at the right time. And of course, I mean, this is not really foresight, this is hindsight, because things actually happen to be right at the right time. So the company started as a game distributor, got invested by Tencent, and launched e-commerce a few years later, and achieved its initial success in Taiwan. And then afterwards, in a private market, it became harder and harder to raise money, which you will hear like once every 2 or 3 years, it becomes really hard to raise money from private market. But in 2017, they decided to go public, and of course, fanfare. But if you look at the stock price chart, and this is a slide which was done by us through one of the academy programs in 2021. So the stock price barely moved for a long time. So which shows that for quite a long time, investors were skeptical about the strategy that the company had. Not that different from the challenges faced in the private market. Then come end 2019 and the pandemic. Everything changed. The share price rose astronomically between 2020 and 2021. And with that comes lots of expectations, lots of pressure, and of course, I mean, a lot of different perspectives floating around the market. And for the first time, that we are seeing quite a lot of attention from serious investors, partners, as well as partner corporates in this company. Next, please. And the company has expanded. Beginning of 2020, we knew Shopee as an e-commerce company in Southeast Asia with its biggest market in Indonesia. But as we stand now, at the end of first quarter of 2022, the company has evolved into many things. They have food delivery, they have express, they have a whole suite of digital financial services, including buy later, cash loans, and insurance, and a digital bank, as we mentioned earlier. They have also expanded beyond Southeast Asia into a number of markets in Latin America, a few markets in Europe, as well as the notoriously difficult to crack India. So many things are happening. The question that many investors are asking is, are they able to juggle? Or put it that way, how are they going to juggle from an organization strategy point of view and implementation point of view? Next, please. And of course, there are doubts in the market. So the company hit on 200 billion market cap in October 2021. And afterwards, it came a very steep downward slope. So of course, I mean, the macro market sentiment, the expectation of Fed raising interest rate, all contributed to this decline. But there are also issues that people are worrying about the company. Are they stretching themselves too thin? Is the gaming unit of the parent company slowing down, etc., etc. Next, please. And when things happen all together. So Tencent cut stake in C a couple of weeks ago. That caused concerns with investors. Although we do think that that move was actually for the benefit of the company, so that in a difficult geopolitical environment, it doesn't get seen as Chinese. Then last month, Free Fire, the main game of Garena, Shopee's sister company, was banned in India. although India doesn't really contribute to the bulk of the revenue, it contributes to a lot of the users they have, and it's also a significant revenue source. And even before the ban, there was already sign of people going out and the sting of Free Fire declining. So that, of course, unnerved investors again. On top of that, you have issues of allegations of workplace discrimination in Singapore, which was being investigated, and on the right, Shopee's closure in France, a market which they had been in only for 3.5 months. So when all this news hit together, and you start to see the media turning its head, saying that, hey, maybe the company is not as great as it seemed to be a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago. But of course, I mean, the company probably has not changed. The external environment has changed a lot. So there's a lot of lessons that we can learn through this journey along the way, which I'm going to pass down to my colleagues to explain a little bit further. Brendan, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now, Brendan.
Okay, let's go. Tech difficulties. So, you know, with all the news that's going on, to really understand what's happening, I think we need to look at the company logic. And you guys have made it easy for us by asking really the right questions. And so let's start with the first 6 questions, which are well related to Shopee's kind of strategic thinking. And so let me read it out. How has Shopee been able to offer discounts in free shipping, measure e-commerce success, and decide to manage profitability? How are they also able to screen pay later customers? And how would C-Money compete with other digital banks and also change purchasing habit and gain market share? So I think we're going to be answering some of these questions quite likely in the next segment. Jiangan, back to you.
Over the years, we have been having lots of discussions with investors through Momentum Works Insights. So there's lots of interest in a company, but there's a lot of things that the company's doing. So that kind of puzzles the investors. Why are they doing that? Why are they doing things in a certain way? We have been observing, and truth be told, there are lots of things that we can talk about. But I'm going to summarize things in 3 key components. On top of everything is having a clear strategy and sticking to it. Of course, it might not look immediately clear to people, and even for people who are working inside Shopee, I know that we have lots of people from Shopee in this talk. So really 3 things. So first is building scale. For a long time, free shipping was an amazing tool that they have been using to get that. The second is never be the first mover when market is not ready. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. The third is relentless copy of proven models and tactics from China. And since 2020, talent from China as well. Next, please. So free shipping. As C Group was preparing for IPO in 2017, I was actually going across the markets and speaking with quite a number of their competitors, and everybody gave the same comment. Hey, they have been doing free shipping, which is very costly. See how long they can burn, especially when they are becoming a public company, which will be scrutinized by public investors. So they didn't change after going for IPO. The free shipping went along for a long time. And then we see that some of the other companies trying to copy the same thing, free shipping. But in terms of execution, there's always a bit of a difference. Free shipping with a limit, free shipping with a certain terms and condition, free shipping with fine print, and free shipping applied to only a limited period of time. So the thing is that people ask lots of questions about free shipping, but exactly what is free shipping and why you use that? I think when you are entering a market where e-commerce is barely known to most of the general public and your prospective consumers, I think nothing beats free shipping as a simple, clear message. And when that happens, you also use this opportunity to actually build the infrastructure. And the more orders you get, the more efficient your whole fulfillment infrastructure becomes. And then that spins well. Of course, if we borrow the experience from Alibaba, I think any of these like discounts and incentives are not meant to be long lasting. So that needs to be transitioned into something else, which help the company monetize. Next, please. As we see in Shopee's case, we try to draw a flywheel of how free shipping is, and of course with other things, spinning the logic of the company. It's a very simple message and it gets lots of consumers interested. They come to the platform and looking for goods, and we have lots of customers. What happens? Lots of sellers come on board because they expect that to be able to sell to these customers. And with lots of sellers comes the selection, lots of goods, which increases customer experience. And here there's a caveat. I mean, I think many of the people we speak to, especially in Singapore, are saying that, oh, customer experience means that you are buying authentic goods and you are buying premium goods, etc., and you are getting good service. But there are actually multiple dimensions to that. It could be the speed of fulfillment. It could be the cost savings. It could be the selection, and it could be other things. So anyway, so that will spins. If you just look at this side, it's probably no different from what Amazon has been doing, the Amazon flywheel. But I think Shopee has layered a lot more different services on top of that: payment, digital financial services, lending, insurance, etc., etc. So everything is geared towards monetizing the same customer and seller base, as well as the transaction infrastructure that's been built in between. Next, please. Here's something interesting. If you look at the timeline, in Southeast Asia, the main competitors of Shopee, Tokopedia started in 2009. Lazada started in 2012. Shopee started in 2015. I think they only started really ramping up in Southeast Asia in 2016. We look at the payment and e-wallet. You have players like GoPay, Ofo, Dana, and Link starting much earlier than Shopee Pay in Indonesia specifically. And many of you who have been in the industry for a while might still remember, like in the second and third quarter of 2019, there was a huge cashback war by different players in Indonesia. Exhausting, expensive. You do see some of the local conglomerates, the patriarchs coming out and to say that, hey, we can't burn money this way. And the Shopee Pay came after the dust settled. They realized that, okay, everybody has been offering incentives, but everybody's scaling down incentives. It's an opportunity for me to come in and acquire the users that these guys have collectively educated. Whether that's a deliberate strategy or is coincidence, I think it worked out quite well. And now we look at the different new services that Shopee is offering: Shopee Express, food, buy now, pay later, fresh, etc., etc. They might be following the same strategy. And of course, in different segments, the difficulty in execution varies, but the strategy is nonetheless quite similar. Next, please. Here, I want to show you a quote. That's from this guy called Duan Yongping, who founded a company called the BBK Group, which later sort of morphed into Oppo, Vivo, OnePlus, and a few other consumer electronic companies in China. So this is a quote attributed to him, which I think is quite interesting. And whether he really said that or not, we actually are not very sure. But let me read the quote to you. Dare to be a late mover. Let you start first, and I will go for the kill with the model you have explored in the market you have educated. In your eyes, I'm your competitor. In my eyes, you are my tool. So it sounds very aggressive, but of course, I mean, it's combination of confidence as well as the aggressiveness in execution. Next page, please. And of course, people say that, oh, Shopee copies lots of stuff from China. But if you understand e-commerce, fintech, digital wallets, etc. in Southeast Asia long enough, you realize that I think every major platform, every major company is trying to copy from China in one way or another. And most of the major platforms count at least one Chinese giant as an investor. The question here is, what exactly do you copy? Why do you copy certain things in a certain way? And how do you adapt whatever you have copied into a market condition that's very different from that of China? And especially when you are doing that in a number of markets, which adds one level of complexity. So as we can see, the marketing, the digital financial offerings, the live streaming, many of the things that Shopee is doing, we can trace similar things in China that provide reference and benchmark. And if you do this well, it can be quite powerful. Next page, please. So, in summary for this segment, I think all of us work in our own settings, whether we are working as an investor, corporate, entrepreneur, etc., etc. And I think every company that's standing here today has a flywheel, or at least started with the flywheel that got where we are today. The question is that, is the flywheel spinning or is the flywheel clogged? And from our individual point of view, what is our role in this flywheel? Are we spinning it or are we just a cog in it? The second, I think many of us, even as entrepreneurs, we juggle between the notion of being the first and learning the best practices. For my short sprint acting as an investor, I always get very skeptical when people say that I want to be the first X and the first Y, because it's very difficult to find a mental framework to understand it and to see whether it works or not. So, and of course, if you're working for a company and you propose something to a boss, and he will always ask, hey, what are the best practices? Is there any benchmark that I can use as a reference? So the question here is that, how do you understand the earlier players, what they have done, and do it better, faster than them? The third thing, copy is a virtue. Nobody would admit that they are copying. I think aside from Rocket Internet, as well as Alibaba in its early days, and I think since it has grown to a large listed company, they stopped doing that. The question is that when you are trying to copy, this is the same as best practices. Do you understand the underlying logic of what you are copying? Do you understand the differences between what you are, the market where the things that you have copied succeeded, into the market or segment or timing that you are trying to do the similar things now? And I think understanding that would probably get you very far. Of course, that has to be coupled with faster and better execution. So a few pointers, and hopefully that we can bring back to our daily life. Back to you, Brandon.
All right. Well, I'm gonna kind of pause there a little as we digest those things. I'm gonna pick my brains off the floor, but great. We've answered, we've kind of lightly covered questions 1 to 6, which is linked to strategy. And hopefully now you can connect the dots on the questions you asked versus what Jianggan shared just now. And if you still want more, go wild at the Q&A or reach out to us later. So let's move on. Question number 7. How does Shopee attract and manage talent, even though there is a lack or a perceived lack of work-life balance and high turnover rate? How are they able to succeed, even with frequent talent movement? Now, this is a really loaded question, and we think to really answer, we need to look at a few facets of people and culture, which we'll take a look at in the next few slides. So, no secret, we all know that Shopee's turnover rate is high. So let's dig a bit deeper. I think really at Momentum Works and Momentum Academy, we always try to understand whether situations or developments through company logic. And I think really that's the key to find out why it's high at the moment. For a high growth company like Shopee, how should we really look at turnover? the first fundamental kind of question, well, we need to ask is high turnover a bad thing? And bear in mind, we all tell ourselves, especially in startups, that we need to be agile and iterate. And for a company that's really growing at a fast and high speed, does the same iteration and agility apply to people? And we always need to look at turnover in a granular way. And what exactly is causing the high turnover? Where is it happening? Is it in the warehouse? Is it the tech team? Or are they the business heads? This means very different things to the organization. So really, a blank statement of high turnover doesn't really mean much. We need to go kind of deeper to understand. So historically, many companies have been accused of high turnover. Case in point, Google. And these are just a few clips we took out, a few news clips we took out over the years from different years. And the theme is the same, right? Google, high turnover, can't keep its talent, but yet still one of the best companies to work for. Why do you think that is the case? And not only Google, if you look at companies in China like Alibaba, it's kind of the same. Lots of people have complained about the infamous 996. But do you know when many people, many of these companies last year forced people not to work overtime, many of their employees complained. We kind of wrote a blog about it. You can check it out later. It's on the footnote. So really what we need to understand is that incentives are different for different people, right? And I kind of like this comment, if you see down there, it's from a former employee of Alibaba. Pros, high salary, right? But couldn't take over pressure, couldn't take over time, right? But on balance, overall, he gave a rating of 4/5, which kind of points to that he was, well, relatively satisfied, right? And with that being said, there are really two sides to every argument, right? So far, everything I've said about high turnover kind of sounds a bit rosy. And really, the reality is that when things go well, there are many things, or there are many reasons to stay at a company like Shopee, Google, or Alibaba. The company is growing and you get lots of opportunities to move around. People say, wow, it's so cool, to be working at a place like Google, Alibaba, or Shopee. And in their prime days, you might be very sought after. And last but definitely not least, at least for me, you're definitely earning some good money, right? You're paid really well. And it seems like this same kind of trend is happening in Shopee in the last few years. And when things go wrong, which they always do, and they will, people will leave for the same reasons to other companies, right? And turnover then can be quite a nasty declining spiral. The only reason, well, I can think of that why would someone stay is because, well, maybe they like their job. And so this is a cool book I wanted to share with you guys. It's by Ben Horowitz. It's called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And we have a number of copies in office, which people often make reference to as we go about the journey. For those of you that don't know, Ben is an established tech entrepreneur and VC, and he co-founded Andreessen Horowitz, famous VC. And in this book, he shares a lot of his learnings in his startup days, right? And in this particular chapter, which is called A Good Place to Work, this is a conversation he had that resonated with me. And he was sharing really what's the difference between a good organization and a bad one. So let me read it out to you. In good organizations, people can focus on their work and have confidence knowing that the work they do will be efficient, effective, and makes a difference for the organization and themselves. These things make their job motivating and fulfilling. In poor organizations, people spend much of their time fighting organizational boundaries, infighting, and broken processes. In the miracle case that they work ridiculous hours and get the job done, they have no idea what it means for the company or their careers. To make it all much worse, when they finally work up the courage to tell management how, and I'm going to bleep this out, how good their situation is, management denies there is a problem, defends the status quo, then ignores the problem. I think this is very relevant to a lot of organizations and culture today. So the golden question really becomes, how do you know whether your organization is good or bad, right? And Shopee's people management is really being tested right now in this perfect storm. However, I think there are many lessons we can take from history, and one of which we mentioned earlier, is from Alibaba. I'm going to pass the time to Yorlin to share with you further. Yorlin.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So here at Momentum Works, if you don't know, we're quite connected to the Chinese ecosystem. So we do know lots of the pioneer tech people from China, and actually we count some of them as our investors. We wanted to thought, hey, why don't we use Alibaba as a case study in today's time and age and the situation to illustrate what's going on. When Alibaba first started, they were a nobody. So you can see the picture on the left. This was the early days of Alibaba. Jack Ma is the guy standing there giving a talk, and you can see this is in his somebody's living room. Unlike Silicon Valley, there were no cars, so there's no garage. Okay, so that was a nice joke. So at that time, they were nobody, right? And they had to come up with like creative, innovative ways to attract talent, retain talent, and also to build a coherent team. So they came up with very creative, innovative principles that are still a bit crude, but still quite relevant in today's world, we think. So a few examples. The first one is 打不死的是信息，绕不开的就是变化。And so in English, you can't kill beliefs and you cannot stop changes. So this is really, really chicken soup for the guys on the ground then. Another one that they had was, this is kind of interesting, still relevant today. Don't think in terms of gains and losses. This is for the guys on the ground. If you can't change the environment, adapt to it. And finally, drive change and keep improving. So imagine back then, they were actually drilling this down into the salespeople. They were competing with the Amazon, right? They were nobody, and they were not the first in the market. So how did they do? So believe it or not, these were actually really, really powerful to actually just drive the team forward. Another principle which we find is very, very relevant today is the focus on the team. Every time we share this slide with our Momentum Academy clients, I get a lot of nods. So I want to share it in today's session. So this one in Chinese again, 团队在我，成就他人. In English, I'm responsible for the team and I should help others succeed, right? And they actually broke this principle down into 3 pillars: dreaming, growing, caring. Seems like everybody is doing it today, but let's drill in a bit deeper. So dreaming, in their terms, they wanted to allow people to achieve their personal dreams and achieve the team's dream. I'll go into it in the next slide, but this is the first pillar. The second one would be to grow. Do you give opportunities to let your employees grow their value? And how do you grow? And finally, this one, all our clients love it, caring. What does caring mean? It doesn't mean just care about everyone equally, but in the loose translation is that you care about the good people, but you shouldn't waste time on the bad people, i.e. get them out as soon as possible, because it's not fair, and it's not fair for the good people there. Right. So this is something that I know, in today's world, we tend to be a bit more caring. We try not to fire people. We have PIP, PIP. But hey, back in the early days of Alibaba, this was actually the principle. Right. Something to consider. And dreaming. What does dreaming mean? So this is a very, very simple principle that they shared with their managers to how to align the team's goal. This is just a very simple, high-level strategy. There's more. There's a lot more detail, but in very simple terms, it can be broken up into 4 segments: understanding the team's goal and forming the team's dream. This is the first 2. I think all of us managers, we are doing it today. Understand what the company's goal. And then how do we form the team's goal or dreams, right? But what is very unique to Alibaba back then was number 3, discover your team's personal dreams. And number 4, establish alignment. And I would say number 5, sell continuously. So what does that mean? So in this case study, the company has a goal, number 1. Number 2, you filter this into your team's goal. Okay, we all understand this. But number 3 is where they actually go personal. What does your employee really, really want? Not just what they want at work, but what is their personal dream? Is it to grow in a certain area? Is it to get the house of their dream? Is it to marry the girl of their dreams? Whatever. This is a personal goal. And the managers would find ways to align these personal dreams with the team's goal dream. And maybe that's why in early days of Alibaba, everyone had a nickname, because this would be their personal like idol, and how would it lead, form the team. Very cool. And then number 4, then the team manager had a really important task to establish the alignment between personal dream and the team's dream. And can you imagine if personal dreams are aligned to a team's dream, how fast people can run, right? History tells us that they can. And very importantly, sell continuously. So people's dream changes, the company's dream change as well. And the manager's role is not just one time to tell the team at the beginning of the year, this is how you do it, this is how we're aligning it. In Alibaba's principle, you have to sell continuously, meaning selling every day, selling every month. And if the first time it doesn't work, you must sell differently as well. So if the first time it doesn't work, find another way to sell to your team. And it doesn't, and even if it works tomorrow, resell it again and again and again. And this becomes a very virtuous cycle. And the most important part, never give up. So this very simple, very easy to understand, a bit crude, but I think very relatable in today's time and age. And I think it's very curious, why would we want to talk about Alibaba case study when we're talking about a session about Shopee? Because we feel like Alibaba being where they have been, where they have gone, they've gone through the ups and downs that Shopee is going through today, right? And fundamental principles remain the same, and they can be reused again and again. Like what Janggan was sharing, copy is a virtue, but you need to understand what you need to be copying and align it continuously. So we thought that this would be a great time to share this in moving this forward. I think that's my role, and I want to pass this back to Brandon.
All right, thanks, Yorlin. And I think kind of just on Yorlin's point, which is that we believe that many of these principles are simple. They're crude, in fact, but they're universally kind of resonating. How companies are benchmarked against these principles tell us kind of powerful stories of their future prospects beyond numbers, and financial reports. So really, at Momentum Works, we do a lot of such benchmarking, right? Which gives us kind of interesting insights about companies, organizations, and people. And we believe this is probably the most powerful way of taking the learnings from, the most cutting edge companies, whether you're an investor, an entrepreneur, a corporate decision maker, or maybe just a change maker, right? And really that's kind of what Momentum Academy is about, right? And my ask of you today is, how would you then benchmark yourselves after listening to what we had to say today? Gonna pause here for a bit of a dramatic effect, but and so we've covered quite good ground today. I think we've answered most of it, maybe perhaps not the last one, which we have time for, ample time, in fact, for Q&A. But before we jump into that, just a recap of Momentum Academy and what we can do. Ultimately, really what we want to do is to inform, enable, and connect people. So this session is an example of that. And you can see below are some of our client programs, of course, pre and post-COVID, and you can read them on your own. So with that, without further ado, I think we've received some questions from the chat as well. Yeah. Maybe we can jump into, maybe you can jump to the Q&A.
Okay. So on this slide, there are quite a number of questions, all addressed mainly to Janggan. Janggan, are you seeing the chat?
Sure.
How do you want to do the Q&A?
We have about 20 minutes, so we have actually quite a number of questions.
Yeah.
I think let me try to answer as many as possible in the limited time we have, and for the ones we don't have time for, let's see that let's see what we can do afterwards. Whether we share some of the answers on our blog or through email or whatever. Okay.
Jangan, since this session is being recorded, and maybe we can read out, maybe somebody can read out the question, and then you can answer it, right? And then can we start with the question number 8 that was asked, which we didn't answer?
Sorry, what is question number 8?
I'll help.
Okay, come. Brandon, go ahead. Yes.
So question 8 was, for C money, would sellers and shoppers at Shopee be a niche entry?
It's a very generic question, right?
Okay.
Okay. And of course, I think many of the services that that C money is offering is related to the use case, which is e-commerce, that involves sellers and buyers, and I think increasingly the riders and drivers they have. So I would say that, I mean, converting some of these users into financial services users would be a straightforward task to do, and this is also similar to what Grab has been doing in Southeast Asia with their riders and merchants. I'm not sure about niche part, because I think the user base is still quite significant. So I wouldn't call it a niche, but I think it would be a good entry point, especially in markets like Indonesia and the Philippines, where where generally I think many people do not have good credit data. So by having e-commerce, you actually know these people much better compared to some of the traditional financial institutions. So I wouldn't see this as a particular niche, but definitely a good entry point.
Is it part of a strategy, do you think, Jangan?
I don't know. I can't speak for Shopee management. I don't work for them, so I don't know.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I think this is we don't represent Shopee. I think this is based on what we are getting from the ground. So I think there's very detailed questions. So Jangan, if we cannot answer them, we can actually have a chat with this person privately, and then we should focus on high level. Okay, so the first.
Yolin, maybe it's easier for me to just read through the questions and then see whether I can sort of share some thoughts or not.
Okay, great. Okay, over to you then.
Okay. Question from June. Are there significant discount vouchers being sold on Shopee, e.g. $10 coupon being sold for $9.50? How would you rate the quality of the GMV, and what happens if when those vouchers disappear? I think the thing about vouchers and the incentives is that they have actually changed quite a lot, and I do believe that attempts are made to monitor performance of different vouchers and different marketing promotion schemes on consumers. I think they've tried that in different markets, even in some of the far-flung areas like Poland and France. So what would happen when these vouchers disappear? And if they disappear now, very straightforward, Lazada's market share will grow. I think over the last few years, whenever that Shopee reduces the intensity of their vouchers, Lazada's market share would grow. So that shows the fact that, I mean, if you are just a platform matching buyers and sellers, you are actually not having a deep enough moat. But we have been seeing that I think Shopee has been taking many steps to address this, and I do believe that this is part of the strategy, right? I'm using vouchers to achieve volume, then go deep onto the supply side and onto the transaction side to try to secure this volume. Using buy now pay later is one method to do that, and trying to control more parts of the delivery infrastructure and offering fulfillment services is also another part of that. So the question is how the company can race against the time to make sure that, okay, while they still have the advantage of volume, how can they go deep into the transactions, into the supply, and to actually build a moat. So I think this is something that's ongoing at the moment. Question from Ved. What could be some reasons for pulling out of France? Is it more due to macroeconomic situation or loss of investor confidence? Shopee started in France was that I think 19th or 20th of October last year. But by end, I think they did some aggressive customer acquisition campaigns in November. But by end of end of December, we can see that the marketing intensity in France already reduced dramatically. So so I don't know exactly what's happening, but from what we have been observing, it seems that the customer acquisition cost in France was probably higher than that they had initially thought. But of course, another question is that were they serious about France, or was it just a test? I think we inclined to believe that it was the latter, because looking at the way they went in, the way they did very aggressive tests, and the way they pulled out very quickly was probably just a test.
So
France
it's
is
like an agile methodology in action.
maybe, yeah. So yeah, so I think in Spain we do see a pattern of reduction in marketing spend, but they are still acquiring customers in Spain. And I think in Poland, we do actually have a colleague who is actually in Poland at the moment, and it seems that the intensity is still there. So they seem to have concluded that that Poland is a good market. A question from Hongwei: how does Shopee view logistics? Will self-owned logistics become mainstream in the future? Will this part drag down profit margins and to a greater extent? I would say that self-operated logistics will probably become a larger part than it is today. And we mentioned just now that that if you are just platform matching buyers and sellers, you are not that sticky as one would think. So controlling the fulfillment part, controlling the supply part would probably make sense. But of course, I mean, here comes the question of who should own all these assets, because it can be inherently heavy. How do you view the future competition between Shopee and Lazada in Southeast Asia, and competition between Shopee and Mercado Libre in Latin America? So I think our understanding about Lazada, Lazada has lots of strong people and lots of good expertise and experience. I think the reason why Shopee was able to overtake Lazada was more down to something about organization and leadership rather than capabilities. I mean, in many areas, in technology, etc., Lazada is actually much better than Shopee, still much better than Shopee. So the question is, I mean, what will the investor sentiment on Shopee, which is now a little bit bearish, evolve over the next 2 years? And how would Lazada streamline its leadership? And we know that last year, Alibaba appointed the former president of Tmall and Taobao to lead overseas operations. Whether that guy can turn things around, there's lots of debate, but it's still, I think, too early to say. So a lot of the predictions would depend on how these two factors evolve. On competition between Shopee and Mercado Libre in Latin America. So Meli is still actually quite loved by investors, and they function more like digital malls rather than marketplaces. So I do believe that I mean, I've been to quite a number of countries in Latin America. I do believe Shopee has a market there, and they have been actively onboarding local sellers as well. So and I think in terms of mindset, they are also, I think, much more flexible compared to Meli. The question again goes back to first organization and leadership, and do they have enough leadership mental space, as well as good people to help them execute, especially if the share price is on a downward trend. Are you on mute? I think that question has already been answered. We're wondering how many orders are subsidized by Shopee in Indonesia today in terms of free shipping program. We heard most of delivery fees are paid by Shopee nowadays in Shopee. Is that true or not? I think this requires a lot of detailed data, and I'm not going to answer this now. Question for Celine: how does Shopee view the rise of live streaming commerce and DTC? What would be the future of Southeast Asia e-commerce? As we speak, we actually have an expert of Indonesia live commerce in our office. So he's an old friend. We have not seen him for 2 years, and he just jumped on the first one of the first VTO flights to Singapore. So we had lots of discussions yesterday and before yesterday about live live commerce, because we know that, okay, Shopee is making a lot of attempts in different ways. And we also know that TikTok has been trying very hard to break into live commerce in Indonesia. And what we do see, the problem is that, I mean, it's very different from China, where you have a very established ecosystem, very highly specialized players to actually spin the whole wheel. In Indonesia, I mean, if I've been to many of the sessions, even the influencers, the streamers are not exactly trained. So the market is not there yet. We do believe there's a potential, but who will play the role of making the whole system evolve much faster, spin the wheel? So that's a question mark. And actually we're doing some detailed study about this subject, and we intend to release a report about live commerce in Southeast Asia in about 2 months' time. So do look forward to that. How many gratis on-kit coupons users use every month in Indonesia? I think that varies month to month and even week to week. So according to different users, and I think our colleagues in Indonesia probably have a better idea. What's your view on Alibaba stopping the $1 billion in discussion with investors for Lazada, according to recent news? So there has been speculation in the market about Alibaba spinning off Lazada, or potentially sort of listing Lazada separately. My personal view is that I mean, if Lazada's management and the entire organization can be more streamlined with a single leadership who is accountable to investors, shareholders, rather than having lots of different departments in a group being able to influence decisions, they will probably move more coherently and much faster. We don't know the reason why things stopped, but I do believe that to unlock the value of Lazada, I think things need to be streamlined. Question: I heard inside Shopee the PPT culture is trendy, make big promise, plan, and weak execution. Is it true? Any comment? The second half of the question, from FF band in Free Fire band in India, it gave me the feeling that Shopee OC is still a Chinese dominant company instead of a Singapore company. Can you elaborate on pro and con of this impression? Did Shopee try to rebrand it or reimage a bit? Okay, the first question, I think as the organization becomes big, a key issue is communications. I mean the processes are set because they help with communications. The question is that when people say that, okay, I spend too much time making PowerPoints and lots of things don't get executed, does that really impact the company from a big picture point of view, or certain things are not meant to be implemented, or better not to be implemented anyway? So that's a question mark. And of course there are lots of initiatives that's happening now, and what is important, what is not important, what they think is not important, which might eventually turn out to be important. We see lots of such examples in Alibaba's journey. So that's also that's always a big question. I think one advice is always to take, I think many of the internal feedback with a pinch of salt, because I think in 2017, 2018, the biggest doubt about free shipping didn't actually come from competitors, but came from people internally. I do think that Tencent relinquishing some of the shares of C Group was partially to help them shake off this potential image of being sort of Chinese or Chinese influenced or dominated company. But we also see that I think this week Singapore's Ministry of Trade has given Reuters a formal response saying that they hope that the ban of Free Fire can be quickly resolved. So at the end of the day, I mean, the company is a Singapore company, and the main stakeholders hold Singapore passports. But the question is, when it comes to the market of India, and I think when Tencent first divested the shares, we wrote a commentary saying that this will probably shirk this brand image, or this sort of representation in the eyes of many Western regulators or geopolitical commentators. But whether you work with the government of India is a big question mark. So another issue is that the risk on Shopee, because I mean, you don't want to run into the situation of TikTok, where you have run into where we have accumulated 200 million active users, then you get banned by India. So I think there's always risk there, and I think even for Amazon, Walmart, there's a risk there as well.
Hey Jangan, hey, we only have 4 minutes left, so can I get you to choose one last question to answer? And for those whose questions are not being answered, don't worry, we are capturing all the questions and we'll be writing the answer and sending it on TLD for everybody to read. Okay, so Jangan, one last question, then I'm going to pass the stage back to Brandon to close.
Do you see TikTok e-commerce becoming a threat to Shopee? My sense is not yet. They might, but not yet. So we do know from lots of sources on the ground, from the sellers, from the influencer agencies, from the people who are actually providing providing the goods, the brands, etc., that the e-commerce part of TikTok Indonesia is not doing that fantastic. There are many reasons to that. So what we mentioned about not having an ecosystem, and also the part that unlike China, Indonesia doesn't have as various a supply base that could supply the live streaming ecosystem with lots of unique goods. That's also a big problem. So the question comes to how committed is TikTok in pushing e-commerce? Because I mean, if it continues to not show significant traction, I mean, many of the things that are sold on TikTok live commerce, you can buy it on Shopee, and which also offers a lot of discounts. So the question is that how committed TikTok is, and are they able to, I mean, from an organization point of view and from an ecosystem point of view, actually build this whole thing up, and how long will it take for them to do that? Will they have the leadership support? And okay. I think these are the key factors.
Thank you, Jangan. Thank you. Okay, so I think passing the stage back to Brandon. Okay, so Brandon. Yeah.
All right, what a loaded 1 hour. Hopefully you've taken some things back. 3:58, I've got 2 minutes. Hey, so I hope you guys enjoyed what we shared today. Hopefully you take something back. Here are just some ideas that are brewing in the Momentum Academy, crypto, fintech. But we also want to hear from you guys, any other interesting topics or like companies that you're interested in that we could explore. Drop us a note. We flashed our email just now. You can follow us on our socials, and we'd love to hear from you. But with that being said, I think on behalf of the team, thank you so much. We've captured all your questions as well, and we'll make sure to answer them. But with that, 3:59 right on the dot, giving you guys your time back. Thank you everybody, and we hope you had a good one.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thanks everybody. Yeah, have a good weekend. See ya.